presentation today is on slips, trips, and falls. And we have the illustrious Mike Stagg here to talk about slips, trips, and falls. Boy, I'll tell you, it's been a rough year. We were headed into about October. We were feeling pretty good about our year, that we were gonna end up with a record year, reducing our losses again, and something happened. What was it, Mike?
Oh, well, the fall happened. I mean, fall happened, snow started, right? We started to get wet, and people started to slip and fall. And so that's where, Jason and I got together and we thought, let's cover this right now, the first of the season, first of the year, because as you can tell, we're in this pattern really well. I mean, we need it. We need the water, right? We need the water, but we got to be safe with everything that we're dealing with here. So that's kind of what we wanted to cover today, because we're seeing a trend here at the Trust. And the first thing that we're seeing is the last 5 years. What I wanted to show you real quick is how we're really doing. So for the Trust, these are our numbers, right? This is the number of claims we've seen come in for workers' compensation injuries. You see your strains, number one, 847 claims over the last 5 years. Number two, right behind it, is slip and falls, 673 claims. A lot of those strains, though, that you see in the claim count there of 847, they could be attributed to the falls and slips, right? They could be a secondary claim from that, straining a hip, a back, a knee, an ankle, whatever it may be, could all relate to those falls and slips. So with falls and slips being the number two cause, our actual number one dollar amount, though, is falls and slips by a large amount. I mean, last 5 years, almost $6.5 million paid out in slip and fall claims, far ahead of those strains of 4.7 million. So almost $2 million more that we pay out every single year with falls and slips in the last 5 years. So what about last year? What about 2022? How did we do? Let's take a look. 2022, this is how we did. Just over 200 strains, right behind, like we saw in the 5-year model, 157 falls and slips. So still 2022, that trend is holding true, right? Falls and slips are our number two cause of claims coming through. And there are number one driver of dollars amount going out the door, almost $1.5 million in slip and fall claims that we paid out in 2022. So, Jason and I got together and we thought, let's get a beat on this, because there are things that can happen to you when you slip and fall that can cause some pretty major injuries, right? Musculoskeletal injuries, things like rotator cuff strains, sprains and strains of hips and ankles and wrists and knees and backs, head trauma, brain trauma like concussions, right? These are just some of the injuries that can happen. Fractures, of course, falling down, breaking an arm, breaking a leg, bruises and contusions, abrasions, cuts, lacerations, all sorts of things can happen when we slip and fall. That's why we want to make sure that we're being safe and we're staying ahead of these slips and falls. So what's a slip? Okay, a slip is a loss of balance due to lack of traction between your feet or your footwear and the walking and working surface. We'll talk about coefficient of friction. Coefficient of friction says when you have two objects coming into contact with one another, the coefficient of friction says that if there's a significant enough friction amount, that a slip will not occur. Okay, so a slip is a loss of balance that's due to a reduction of that coefficient of friction, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. A trip is when your foot or lower leg hits an object and your upper body goes in a direction that you didn't want it to go. So you're walking along and your momentum of your upper body keeps walking as your lower body stops walking. Okay, that's what causes a trip. Stepping down to lower surface and losing a balance. Okay, that's a trip. Okay, so just something that's causing your upper body to move faster and move in a direction that your lower body isn't going as well. Okay, so that's a trip. And then our last one is the fall, right? Moving downward rapidly without control from higher to a lower level. So it occurs when you're too far off center or off balance. There's two types of falls that we typically see here that we want to make you aware of. So a fall to the same level, right? That's you're walking normal surface, walking along, slip and fall, and you fall down on, level ground. Or a fall to a lower level. You're on a higher platform and you trip and fall down to a lower level. Okay, so two different kinds of falls: falls at the same level, falls to lower level that we're looking at. So some typical causes of slips that we see here at the Trust, right? Wet products or spills on smooth floors or walking surfaces, which decreases that coefficient of friction. Things like wet ground, snow and ice. Like Jason said, we were doing really good. We were seeing not a lot of these slips and trip falls going into the fall season, going into the fall winter season. Then all of a sudden, we get lots of rain, we get lots of snow, lots of ice happening this winter so far, and we see a lot of these slips, trips, and falls. Grease and oil on the floor. Okay, again, decreases the coefficient of friction. Dust, paper, and plastics. Those things. The dust. Sometimes you can't see it. And that dust is slippery. Paper on the ground, loose paper, plastic wrappers, things like that on the ground. Polished surfaces, those things cause slips because they make your feet unsteady underneath you. So different causes of trips, hoses, cables, cords, wires, things across the floor that we're not expecting to be there. Clutter, there's just bad housekeeping going on. We've got things in our aisleways, things that are blocking our paths that we're trying to go around. Unexpected elevation changes, like when you're walking outside, maybe on a sidewalk. Anyone ever been walking outside on the sidewalk in your neighborhood or your place of business, and you see, those raised sidewalks that you're really not expecting? Okay, that's an unexpected elevation change. Irregular steps, so steps that aren't placed at regular intervals for you. Carpets and rugs. We see a lot of carpets and rugs because when you have a transition from a hard surface to a soft surface like a carpet or a rug, if that transition isn't properly maintained and taken care of, you can get a slip and you can get a trip on those just because you're changing an elevation, changing a surface area where you're really not expecting it to happen. Uneven and damaged floor obviously is a huge cause of trips. So we have to look at human factors as well, right? It's not just all these outside factors, the snow, the ice, the stuff we can't control, right? Failing eyesight, we can't control that, right? We just get older. As we get older, our eyesight starts to dwindle, our depth perception starts to go down, and there are things that happen within us anatomically that we have to be aware of, okay? Our physical condition and fatigue, right? If we're tired, we are more likely to slip and fall. And why is that? It's because we're just not paying attention anymore. We're just trying to get from point A to point B and not taking into account the hazards that are in place between point A and point B. Okay. Stress and illness can definitely cause us to slip and fall. Anyone ever felt sick, felt nauseous, and you're dizzy, and you're just trying to make it to where you're trying to go? You're not worried about the stuff that's around you. Okay, you're not aware. Medication, alcohol, and the effects of drugs, definite causes of slip, trip, and falls. What we're really looking at here with human factors, though, is a lot of times we get too complacent with things. How often do you sit at your desk, or how often do you stand at your workstation, or sit behind the wheel of your car? Okay, and you just do that and becomes second nature to you. You know where that desk is. You know where that cord is on the floor that is always there. Okay, but we've seen claims here at the Trust where people are getting out of their desk, walking around, and they smash into their desk and they fall down to the ground. Okay, that desk didn't move. It hasn't moved in years. So why do we hit it? And why do we slip and fall? Just because maybe we're tired, or maybe because we get too complacent, or we're thinking about other things rather than thinking about what we should be doing and trying not to slip and fall. Okay. Also carrying or moving too many objects at the same time. And this is what I like to call the grocery bag syndrome, right? Everyone knows what I'm talking about with the grocery bag syndrome, right? You don't want to, when your wife or husband or your partner says, hey, can you come help me bring the groceries in the house? You go down, go to the garage, you go to help bring the groceries in. And when you do that, you stack them on your arms. Okay, you stack them on, because ain't nobody want to make more than one trip out to the car, right? Especially when it's cold. But I'm here to tell you, carrying too much is a huge cause of slip, trips, and falls. Okay, it throws you off balance, as well as if you're carrying something large and it's impeding your vision and you can't see what's ahead of you, then you may slip and fall because it's something you cannot see. Okay, taking shortcuts and being in a hurry to get something done is definitely a cause of slip, trips, and falls. So let's be more cautious as we're carrying things and moving objects, and just pay better attention to what we're doing. Now let's talk for just a few minutes about prevention, right? How do we prevent these slip, trips, and falls? Through workplace design, good housekeeping, things like that. Workplace design is a huge, huge factor when we look at avoiding slips, trips, and falls. Having proper maintenance of your flooring, of your grounds, of the things that you're walking in and on and around is super important to avoiding these slips, trips, and falls. Make sure that there's a place for everything. Make sure that your oil drip pans, your extension cords, your ventilation systems, the things that you're using on a daily basis, if you're using them, fine, have them there. Know where they're at. But if you're not using it at that time, take it and put it away. Roll up that extension cord, put that drip pan away. Take that box that you were pulling stuff out of and move it away, move it to the side, out of the walkway, so that nobody else can slip, trip, or fall. Okay, non-slip surfaces are a big thing when in workplace design. I know you guys have seen those, maybe garage floors, concrete floors with that coating on it, with that epoxy coating on it, with the flakes of like stuff in there. That kind of covering is super, super nice because it's a non-slip surface. If something spills on that, it's easy to clean up, it's easy to apply in the first place, and it helps to increase that coefficient of friction that I was talking about. Adequate lighting is a huge, huge thing with workplace design and making sure that we avoid our slips, trips, and falls. It's not enough to say, we've got one light here, it should be okay, I can still see everything. Or, we've got lots of natural daylight today. Let's open the window up. Let's not worry about changing that light bulb or that bank of lights that's gone out. No, let's make sure we have adequate lighting always in place so that we can avoid our slips, trips, and falls. Okay, snow and ice. This is a big thing this time of year, right? And this is where Jason and I saw this trend. As soon as the snow started, we saw a trend of slips, trips, and falls dramatically increasing. We have a great crew of folks that work for us in our city organizations. Those folks out there plowing the roads. It's such a thankless job. They're out there at 3, 4 in the morning, plowing the roads so we can get to work on time, or to school, or to a friend's or a family's house on time. What we want to do, and do that safely. They do such a fantastic job. We could take some notes from them in making sure that we have regular removal and monitoring of our walking surfaces in our parking lots and our walkways. It's not enough to just rely on those people. They're busy. They have a lot to do. I did a training down in Utah County a few weeks ago, and some of the folks walking into that training had been out snow plowing the road since 3 in the morning. Okay, so they're out there, they're monitoring even at 3 in the morning when they need to get out there and plow our roads for us. So we should do the same thing in our workplace. So when we get into the office in the morning, right, if we have walkways that are covered in snow and ice, what should we do? We should have a snow shovel there. We should have bags of snow melt and ice melt that we can go throw out and start to melt the ice and increase our coefficient of friction, make it easier for people to walk into our place of business. Not think, well, we're going to do the penguin walk, walking in. Everyone knows what the penguin walk is, shuffling your feet along, and we make it in safe and okay and go to our desk and get on with our day. Take a couple of minutes, take some snow melt, take your shovel, go out there and clear the walks for your next coworker to come in, or go and clear it for the public to come in and come visit you in your office. One of the things that we'd like to maybe have you introduce in your organizations is a snow and ice removal log. So if you do have something come up where somebody says, hey, I fell and slipped on your property, you're covered in saying that you've done your due diligence. If you've got these snow and ice removal logs, I came in, I did this, I salted, I shoveled, I've done some due diligence in trying to make sure that this place is safe for you to come in. So take a look at that. Maybe that's something you want to look at adding. Okay, housekeeping is a big thing. There's a whole OSHA standard around housekeeping. The standard is 29 CFR 1910.22. All those big long numbers mean is just, that's the OSHA standard that says all places of employment, passageways, storerooms, and service rooms shall, when you hear shall in OSHA, that's OSHA speak for must, or has to be kept in clean, orderly, and in a sanitary condition. So housekeeping is a part of OSHA. So make sure that things in walkways and storage rooms and passageways and areas are clean, orderly, and sanitary. Okay, like this picture here, that's a furnace, right? Is that clean and sanitary? I don't think so. You've got combustibles, you've got alcohol right next to this furnace, to this gas burning furnace. Okay, big issues there. So make sure that we keep things safe and orderly. Here are pictures that we've collected over a few of the years of storage rooms, of office areas, of work areas that we've seen in our members here in the trust. I mean, has anyone ever seen a storage room like you see in the upper left-hand corner, or a workspace in the lower right-hand corner, or an office space in the upper right with the carpet runner on the floor that's butted up against a cabinet now and is causing a trip hazard? Okay, all sorts of things could cause these trip hazards. Let's just be aware of what they are and make sure that we have good housekeeping so that we can maintain a safe walking area. Footwear is super important when we're talking about avoiding slips, trips, and falls. Okay, make sure your footwear is appropriate for the task. So if you're doing a task that requires you to be outside and where you could be exposed to ice or water or snow or slippery surfaces, make sure you have a slip resistant shoe. Something that is slip resistant and non-skid. They'll specifically say on the sole of that shoe if they're slip resistant and non-skid. We encourage you to look at your footwear and look at your program that you have around footwear to make sure that the shoes that you have are appropriate for the task that you're doing. Make sure they're slip resistant and non-skid. Remember, it's the response, according to OSHA, it's the responsibility of your employer to provide you that footwear that is appropriate for the task at hand. So that's something to think about. Is your footwear conducive to what you'll be doing? There was a time when I was a recreation director, and one of the things we did was we had a program where we took people on hikes. So for that program, I had to make sure that my staff members had appropriate footwear that was slip resistant, that was non-skid, and that was designed for hiking, so that they could go out and hike in a safe manner. Okay, so all footwear though is there are some footwear that's very specialized. Okay, like you see here, these are ice spikes that you use for working out in snow and ice. They're designed for the task and the environment. They are not a universal thing. So this obviously isn't something you would wear every day, or this is something that you wouldn't strap on your feet to go and throw down that ice melt. Okay, so it's not for all uses. Make sure your specialized equipment is used specifically for the task and the environment that it's designed for. Okay, otherwise you're going to cause more problems than you will be helping, than you think you will be helping with putting on that piece of equipment. Okay, surface treatments. What surface treatments do, like things like clear coatings, that epoxy surface in your garage with the flecks of stuff in it, your rubberized coating, mats and runners and grip tape. What that does as surface treatments is it increases the coefficient of friction. So the measurement of friction between your foot and the walking surface, it increases that. When you increase the coefficient of friction, you make it more sticky, right? Makes it less likely that you're going to slip and fall on that floor. When something happens and you have water on that floor, or ice or snow or grease or oil or something that's causing now the coefficient of friction to be lower, then that causes your chance of falling and slipping to be much higher. So OSHA has a tool that you can use to actually measure the coefficient of friction of your surfaces. The OSHA recommendation is standard is a 0.50, and when you drop 1 degree below that 0.40, That's what OSHA considers a slip and fall hazardous floor situation. What that does is that says that's increasing the chance of you slipping and falling on that floor by 10 times. And so we want to make sure that we treat our surfaces with things like rubberized coating, mats and runners, and grip tape, okay, to make sure that we're increasing our coefficient of friction in these areas where it could be wet, where it could be icy or greasy, to make sure that the surface is good for us to walk on. Now, just let me say just a couple of things about grip tape. Grip tape is a fantastic tool, right? It's a very coarse material. It's like sandpaper on the floor that you stick down, right? Increases the coefficient of friction, makes you stick to it. What's important with grip tape, though, is it does wear out over time, okay? I've seen a lot of situations where people have put grip tape down on the floor to help with on a stair, for example, and that grip tape is now worn off so much that it's now a smooth surface. Okay, make sure you're inspecting your areas if they have grip tape, making sure that if they need to be replaced, they get replaced regularly. Okay, floor openings. If you have floor openings, things like manholes, things like that, make sure you guard them. According to what OSHA says, is every temporary floor opening must have standard railings or have somebody constantly standing by and attending to that situation. Because with floor openings, any pit or trap door or anything like that, when a cover is not in place, that pit, that trap, whatever it is, it has to be protected on all sides by a railing, okay, or by a person who is attending that place at all times. Because if you don't, bad things can happen. I mean, here's somebody who's working in a shop, and it looks like a coffee shop of some sort. How many times do you think she's worked here and walking around, and now people have gone down into an opening that they didn't guard, that you didn't put railings up around? She's not expecting that to be there. And if they had somebody there standing guard, protecting that opening, we wouldn't have an accident like this happening. So anytime you have a floor opening, anytime a cover is open on a floor that is not normally open, it needs to be guarded, or it needs to be attended to the entire time that door is open. Okay, open-sided floors. Every stairway or floor opening has to be guarded by a standard railing. A railing has to be provided on all sides except at the entrance to a stairway. So if you have an open-sided floor, you've got to make sure it's guarded with a railing at all times. Look at this picture here. So we do a good job in some areas, right? We do a great job with the stairs here. Stairs going up, they've got a railing, right? They've got a railing at the at the stairs, on the landing. They've got railings on all sides. But then as you look at the platform area to where it's going up, you've got walls there, where you've got a platform there without walls, but there's no railing around that entire area. Okay, we've seen this, and this may be a situation that you see in your organization, right? You have a warehouse, you have a maintenance shop, you have somewhere where you're trying to maximize space, because space is always at a premium in these areas of work, right? So we build something here to have a storage area, but then think, let's build it flat on top so we can store stuff on top too. Okay, great idea. Let's make sure you guard it though. Make sure it's safe for your workers to be up and on and around. So not only the stairs, but make sure you have a guard on all sides of this, on all these walls, on all these wall openings, to make sure that people aren't falling out. Oof. Because remember, all wall openings from which there is a drop of more than 4 feet have to be guarded by one of the following: a rail, a picket fence, a half door, or some kind of equivalent barrier. Okay, all wall openings with a drop of more than 4 feet have to be guarded. So make sure that you take a look at any areas that you might have that have a wall opening and make sure you guard them. Okay, all your stairways, every flight of stairs having 4 or more risers has to have a hand railing. 4 or more stairs have to have a hand railing, OSHA standard. Okay, so take a look at that. If you've got stairways that don't have a handrail, get a handrail installed. All right, construction and repairs. Make sure if you're doing construction or you're making repairs to something, make sure you mark it, make sure you barricade it, and make sure you cover the area. Make sure you cover a drop. Never assume just because it's torn up and you've got concrete going one way and ground going another way. Never assume it's obvious that you shouldn't be walking around here or you shouldn't walk through here. Okay. People will do dumb things. Make sure that you mark it and barricade it. If possible, cover it. Make sure that it's very, very identifiable that there's construction and repairs going on here. And never assume that it's just obvious that, oh, there's stuff torn up, we don't need to mark it and barricade it and cover it. No, do your due diligence. Make sure you mark, barricade, and cover everything up. Okay, parking lots. We've talked about this a little bit. But for parking lots, make sure you clear snow and ice. Make sure you do that in a timely manner. Okay, make sure you document and seal and maintain your parking lots. It's a big thing with parking lots is that you make sure that the walking surfaces are even for you to be walking around. Okay, so if you're going to fall, something's going to happen and you're going to fall. How should you do it? What you want to do is you want to lean forward into the fall. Something happens and you're going to fall. Make sure you lean forward. Don't lean back. If you lean back, what's going to happen is you're going to catch your head on the back on the way down, and you're going to probably give yourself a head injury, brain injury, concussion of some sort. Fall forward, keep your head up. Okay, protect it. Your head, it's a heavy piece of equipment. Make sure you protect it, and it's important. You got a lot of important stuff here. Make sure you fall like a sack of beans, which means relax. When you fall, relax. Spread out the surface area so the impact is spread out over a larger area. Turn and fall. Turn as you fall. Okay, as you fall, if you're falling forward, right? Turn as you fall so you land on a side, so you don't land on your face. Landing on a shoulder or a hip is much better than landing directly on your face or on your head. Okay, so just a couple of things here real quick to wrap it up about audits. Audits are very, very important as we look to avoid the accidents in our workplace, especially slips, trips, and falls, because these are things that are easily picked up on, things that are just low-hanging fruit that we can take care of today to make sure that we avoid these very costly claims that we're coming along that cause a lifetime of pain. Okay, so regularly inspect all of your facilities. That doesn't just mean the maintenance shop or the streets department. That means your office space, where your city manager works, where the CEO is working, where the office staff are working. Inspect all of your facilities, even the places you don't normally go into, warehouses, shops, storage areas. Make sure you inspect all your facilities and make sure you have a closed loop system to track your findings. What that means is if you have a finding that you find somewhere that is a health or safety hazard, something that could cause a slip, trip, or fall, you document that. This is what I found. This is what we did. We closed the area. We alerted maintenance. Maintenance came in. Now, what does maintenance do? You should have a chain of command from finding to completion of what you did and who did it and what was done in order to take an unsafe condition and now make it a safe condition. So our MyTrust mobile app does a great job with this. We have a way for it to remind and do things for you to help with this closed loop track system to track all your findings. If you need more information on that, on how to get into MyTrust Mobile and use that safety application, get in touch with Jason or I. We're more than happy to come out and help and walk through these kind of things with you to show you how to use these audit tools that we have for you. One of the things that we'll send out with after the completion of this, with the recording of the presentation, is this form here. And this form is the form that we use when we go out to do a risk assessment or an audit of the facilities that you can now take and use to walk through your facilities. It gives you just a step-by-step directions on what you can do, what you should look at in order to help avoid these very, very preventable injuries. So in summary, just remember, gravity is always going to win. It's going to win 100% of the time. Right. So what that means is we've got to know where our problem areas are and make sure we keep things organized in a clean and organized manner. Make sure your things are visible. And if we have problems, make sure you fix it. Okay. Make sure you have those railings and guards up where there needs to be up. Last, just watch your step. Just be aware. Right. And, Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of our slip, trip, and falls can just be can be mitigated if we just pay attention, right? Being aware of your surroundings, being aware of where you are in space, and what you're walking on, what you're walking by, and what we can do to be safer.
Yeah, Mike, I think you're 100% dead on when it comes to awareness. These majority of these things, if we polled all of those people that had these slip and fall claims, I think we'd find a pretty common thing that, well, I just wasn't paying a lot of attention, and there was the ice that I slipped on.
Mhm.
Folks, Mike's done a great job here.